And we're so excited to be back here again on our YouTube series, The Journey. My name is Morna.
And I'm Jane.
And today on The Journey, on this episode, we'll be talking about something that's very, very important. So I'll just let my wife do all the talking because she did quite a lot of research on this. So I'm just going to be adding salt and pepper and Maggi into our discussion for today. So dear, I think you can take over now.
So glad to be back once again in this episode of The Journey. And today we'll be looking at a special topic, honey. What's the topic for today?
Yeah, our topic for today is toxic relationships.
Toxic relationship. And we'll be looking at the definition of toxic relationship, what it means to be in a toxic relationship, and how to compare the differences between a toxic relationship and as well a healthy relationship. We're also going to be looking at the signs, what are the things to recognize to know that you're actually in a toxic relationship. We'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at the causes, effects of a toxic relationship, what a toxic relationship can do to someone who is in it. And we'll lastly be looking at, can a toxic relationship be actually fixed? Is there hope for partners in relationship or couples that are in a toxic relationship, if there's hope for that particular relationship to still work again, or if they need to go on a separation or whatever. So we're going to be looking at a lot on that. So we'll start first with the definition of a toxic relationship, and I'd like my husband to give us a brief insight to what a toxic relationship is.
Well, we all know toxic. I think it's a scientific word. When something is toxic, it means it's dangerous. And sometimes you will see the danger sign like toxic chemicals. So when we talk about toxic, we're actually talking about something that's not healthy, that is not good, that is not right. And a relationship can be toxic. A relationship can be so unhealthy that, it could wreck both parties, the man, the woman. And we just have to be able to find a balance in understanding each other. When you talk about being toxic, you just come to this point whereby two people, because it could be both ways, it could be both the male and the female, both of them can be toxic, or it could just be one party, the man or the woman, and one person or the two of them, just exhibiting characters and attitudes that do not go well with what a healthy relationship is supposed to be. So let's talk about the signs of a toxic relationship. I know you've got lots of points, so let's just fire on.
All right. Some of the signs of a toxic relationship, or signs to watch out for to know if you're actually in a toxic relationship. One of them is overprotective nature. There's some people that have this overprotective, they call them jealous lovers. They are too overprotective of their spouse. And I don't know, there's this belief that some people say, okay, because my fiance or my fiance or my wife or husband is handsome or beautiful, and then I'm scared, I don't want someone else to snatch the person or to
and sometimes it really can get embarrassing for the party that is being protected, but it really doesn't really work out. A relationship is all about being free with each other, and if you are not, if someone is not free, then that's some form of toxicity. That's some form of being toxic.
Another side of a toxic relationship is in the aspect of one-sided love. There's this, there are times that, one party feels, oh, I'm always the one giving, I'm always the one, you're not reciprocating, I'm the one giving, I sacrifice my money, my time, my everything. So that one side, and I could remember vividly, there was a time I also had this experience, there was one of the relationships I was into before I got married. It was actually a toxic relationship. In fact, the person almost turned me to a recharge card machine. Can you imagine? I was always, you just tell me, send me a recharge card, and I was just thinking that was just maybe I was trying to please him. That's love in my own definition as at that time.
It was one-sided.
Yes, I was always the one giving, I just want to do everything to please him. He borrows money from me, you understand? All of those things. And he wasn't actually reciprocating, and with time I just discovered that it was actually a one-sided love, a one-sided relationship. And then another aspect is this ownership mentality. Sometimes ownership mentality comes with that domineering nature, where you see some men tell you, I'm not looking for anything, I'm wealthy, I have the money, I have everything I want, I'm not looking for anything, I have a job, you understand? So that's tend to, at times this ownership mentality, they just some feel too superior, and then they look at, imagine if as a lady now you're from maybe a poor background and the person I picked you up from the streets, things like that. So
that's toxic.
Yes, that's
and should be avoided too. And okay, let me just chip in one. Another form of a toxic relationship is a relationship that's not defined.
Yes.
If a relationship is not defined, then all you're gonna get is toxic.
Yeah.
But I believe a relationship that is geared towards marriage would want to thrive. It might not be perfect, and but both of them will just have that desire to want to be better, because if two people are going to stay together for the rest of their lives, then that means they really have a lot of work to be done. So I think another form of a relationship that is toxic, it's a relationship that's not defined. So please, people, define your relationships.
Set boundaries. And boundaries is also very important. When you define your relationship, you set boundaries. You set boundaries, to say. So it's good to set boundaries in your relationship. It helps you to stay focused in that particular relationship. Then I think another thing that is termed a toxic relationship is a relationship that there's a lot of aggressive behavior, complaints, nagging, and then there are times that you don't want your partner to air his or her view, you just shut him up and things like that. You interject, you don't give the other person the opportunity to express himself or herself. And then there's also a kind of toxic relationship that involves verbal abuse, where you just talk to the other person in a harsh way, you're not being considerate sometimes. And then there's also a part of toxic relationship that leads to sexual molestation, sexual abuse, that you use coercion or
abuse in general.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be sexual.
Exactly.
A man can be hitting on his wife. The wife can also slap the husband.
Yes.
We've heard cases like that too.
Yes.
And a toxic relationship is what fuels this kind of attitude that is being exhibited in some relationships.
And there's, funny enough, these days, it's not just husbands now that beat their wives, in a toxic relationship. I've heard stories of women also beating their husband or their partner in a relationship. So all of these are signs of a toxic relationship. And I believe we know the differences between a toxic relationship and a healthy relationship. When you say a healthy relationship, it has to do with the relationship that is love, there's trust, there's understanding, and there's stability. You understand? And that's a healthy relationship where you learn to trust your partner. Your partner might not be 100% perfect, you understand, but you learn to trust that person over time. You don't necessarily get jealous of the person. So there's a difference between a toxic relationship. There's difference between a toxic relationship and a healthy relationship. So as we wrap up, we'll be looking at, just want to quickly look at if actually a toxic relationship can be fixed. Is it possible then?
Well, it depends. Well, I don't believe in supporting someone being toxic. It depends on both parties. If one party is ready, if the person who is being toxic is ready to change, then definitely there is a chance for that relationship. But for a relationship where the person is just being who he or what she is, then if you're not married, then I think it's time to say goodbye to that relationship. So, but it all boils down to defining the relationship. If the relationship is not defined, if all they do in the relationship is just sleep together, then you can't. If that's all what the relationship is all about, then there's no respect. You understand? So there's going to be some form of toxic behaviors being exhibited by one party or the other. So, but if it's in a marriage situation, life is very, very important, and I think what the right thing to do is to separate. If it gets abusive, then you separate and then talk things out. If it works out, that's beautiful. If it doesn't, oh wow. I don't know.
To add to that, toxic relationship, it can actually be fixed, but we're looking at it in both ways, either in a relationship or in marriage.
Yeah.
Toxic relationship can be fixed. And how can it be fixed? That is when both parties, like my husband rightly said, when they both define that relationship, or they define it, they know it's leading towards marriage. Now, when that relationship is leading towards marriage, or even if they are married, one of the ways to make that relationship or that marriage work out is when both parties decide to come together and really see the need to work on themselves. So when they work on themselves, and then communication plays a key role, in working on a toxic relationship to make it work out. Communication, and in the case of married couples, they can as well seek help from counselors. You understand? And then prayer, above all, will also help many things.
And the beautiful thing about relationships, sometimes people are toxic not because they want to. Sometimes the environment they were brought up in could be a factor, so that could help you either be patient with the person, so you can just understand where the person is coming from. Sometimes people do stuff not because they just want to hurt you, or because of the way they are brought up. So you want to know, why do you do this? Okay, how was it like growing up? Were you raised by a dad? How was your childhood like? By the time you break them with those kind of questions, then I feel they will open up to you, and you could probably see the big picture behind their behavior.
Yeah, before we wrap up, I'd like my husband to just say one or two things. Have you actually been a toxic partner before?
Yes,
Maybe
as far as our relationship, because this is what the show is all about. Yes, I would say I was the toxic one. So I've just learned to grow, and thanks there for your patience. But it's never easy, but I think as we keep having faith in each other, because I believe you had faith in me to have waited this long.
Patience.
Alright, this is where we are cut it short for today. We believe what we've been able to say in about 12 minutes will be very, very useful to the whole world. So keep sharing, keep liking,
and keep commenting as well.
That's right.
Alright.
So see you in another time. So we're just going to dance out with the music.